That's on the ocean. I waved back, the ocean was waving. That's on the streets of a German city as we're walking down the street patrolling. About 4 soldiers in the group. That's in the same city. I can't remember the name of the town. Probably if I had the original picture I could tell it, but a soldier there with a trumpet blowing the mess call. See the soldiers all lined up in front of the building, ready to go. That's in Ruhr, Germany, during the Battle of the Bulge. And the engineers are getting ready to put a pontoon bridge across there and go right up along the side of that bridge, get ready to start moving out and going on towards Berlin after the Battle of Bulge. We had an area covered there with a man about every mile and a half in proportion, but then we didn't stay out there. We just had that in case we had to patrol it and know the enemy was coming. But that's the engineer battalion moving boats in to make a bridge. Now you got me when I'm staff sergeant, and I'm over in Germany leaning up against the building between battles when they move back to the area out of combat. So we got a day's rest, and I got on some clean clothes and got outdoors and breathing some fresh air. I'm walking by where a man's just standing guard. And that looks like Nemo from Everett, Washington. And he was a good friend. We a lot of times talked. He wasn't supposed to be talking there, but then we did. Oh, it's the second picture. You've got one just like that. I was talking to a boy when I told him he wasn't supposed to talk. And I was in the same corner there with my foot up against the building leaning back. That's just a duplicate of that picture.
What's that sign?
It's the number on the house there that we're at. We're on a broken down bridge there. We could get foot troops across, but then we couldn't get any machinery across, so they'll have to rebuild the bridge. That's our platoon that a lot of times went ahead of the troops to find where the enemy was. We'd a lot of times patrol at night and then come back and report what we found. That's my good friend Alexander. He did the drawing and the artist work. We worked together in the map section when I was in that department in S3 in the overseas work. We was up about, I can't remember now the name of the city, but it was one of those northernmost cities when we was attached to the 1st Army, fighting with the Canadians and the British, and we was doing the map work there. That's me back on the maps again. Alexander's gone somewhere, but I'm in the same building as I was in that previous map picture, working in the S3 department in one of the larger cities up in northern Germany. That's the way I traveled when I was with S3. I had a satchel with all kind of orders in it, and the other board there was a 3x5 map board. It would fold open and show a lot of area on the map so that we could do our plans. we'd change maps after we got out of that territory and go into new territory. But then that's somewhere in, I think, pretty close to Eisendorf in Germany. Now there's a clown. We found a top hat. We went into the houses sometimes when we'd go into the cities. I thought I'd look pretty good wearing a top hat. So I got out and they took my picture. Alexander took that picture. I remember him laughing at me when I walked out with it on. Now I'm out on a stoop of a building in Germany. Posed for a picture, sitting back with my foot on the railing there. I was supposed to be the getaway man with a three-man squad coming into town. We was going to establish an observation post in the church. So it was just breaking daylight. We got into town there, and when we come up the street, they'd told us that we already had troops in the city, and so we was being careful. But I heard a shot, and I jumped over behind the corner of the building. That shot hit the bale of straw right in front of me that they had put over their window to keep the lights from shining out so they wouldn't get bombed by our American planes. And that straw flew all over me. Well, and I looked up, and I could see the guy with a helmet. He was just his eyes and the brick post, the fence of the cemetery right there. We was almost to the church, and so I up and shot and got a hole through his helmet just above that post. And then the guys down in the basement, we was right by the house where all these fellows was just getting ready for breakfast. You could hear their mess gear rattling down there in the cellar. So I said, Cummins is here, but hand over comp. And so out came 35 soldiers. Didn't even have their helmets on, didn't have their guns. And so I just motioned for them to line up, and we sent one of our patrol on back to them, guarding them 35 soldiers. Well, they didn't write it up quite that way when I got my Bronze Star, but that was the incident that brought it on. I'd killed one guy and captured 35 others. There I am on somebody else's bed in the city in Germany. You can see that I've got my combat boots on. We took that house over and moved in, and I picked the softest bed that was up on the third floor in the house. We was really tired. Yeah, homecoming. Boy, I was daydreaming then. I was wanting to get there. That was a time when I was staff sergeant in the INR platoon. That's at the edge of a city. I think that one's in Germany, near the Black Forest. We're in Germany there, around a little lake in the mountains. That's a mountain stream. Not big enough for fish, but then it was big enough to take a bath out of and fill up our canteen and our tubs that we wanted to take a bath in. That's just after we crossed the Rhine River. Command post was in this old castle just off of the banks of the Rhine River. Notice the sandbagged windows. Yeah, Paul Alexander, you remember him being with me back in one of them other pictures in on the Rhine River. That's my brother, ain't it? Yeah, I think it is. My brother come to visit me in France. I think that boat was the Graf Spee, sister ship to one of the big German vessels, and we captured that and away from them, and then they rigged it up for troop transport. That's a truck full of duffel bags, Army gear. That's an Army camp. You can see supplies out there in the tents. It's a wintertime picture. There's a Captain Way, our commanding officer, and I can tell by the way he wears his hat. He's watching an airplane come in and land. Boys are out there at their leisure. It's in a tent camp. Yeah, I see the wrecked building there. That's been bombed out. We was coming into that town after the Air Corps had bombed all the buildings. That was in the city where the big spire church is. I can't think of the town now. I'd have to look up in my book, but then it begins with a C, the name of the town. Yeah, that's a grave at Nordheim in Germany, where they buried a lot of the Jewish people. Sometimes they put them on cars and run them through the ovens and burned them, but then these people are all Jews being buried in a mass grave. You can see the soldiers standing down along the path there, but they just take a bulldozer and push the grave down about 3 feet, lay the people in there side by side, and then push the dirt right back over the top of them. They're to be there forevermore. That's a meeting with the Russians at close of the war. They did a dance one time when they first came in. We went into the mess hall, and there was 4 officers got down at full knee bend, and we turned on some records so they could have a rhythm to do it, and they walked around in that room there doing a dance down full knee bend and kicking their toes out in front of them. They was really muscled and masculine in their parade. I think there was about 30 of them in the bunch, and that looks like about the whole bunch there. But they were roughnecks. I'm telling you, they could shoot the German women while they was swimming across the river trying to get away from them, and you see a lot of dead bodies going down the river there. They'd shot from their side, and some of them come across, they'd had their clothes torn off of them, and a mother and her daughter, I remember, came into the camp where we was at, screaming and asking for help. We got an army blanket and threw it around them and sent them on back to the back where they could find some relatives or friends in a city back there. The war was terrible. That's when we met the Russians. All these boys with their backs to us as Russian soldiers. And that was 15 miles south of Berlin. In close of the war, we was the 3rd Division to make contact with the Russians, and they come into our camp. You see, they're still carrying their guns. That boy there's got a high-powered machine gun. He's not trusting nobody. He should have took his gun off of his shoulder because we made contact, but then he didn't. You can see the difference in the uniforms to what the American boys wear. This is just before we come home from Germany. We're waiting on a train to come, and soldiers got their full field pack, their overcoats. We're going to be riding in a boxcar for about 400 miles. That's a picture that goes with getting ready to come home from overseas. Round up near the railroad station. See the railroad cars in the background. That's in the rail yard. After we get started on the tracks, why, we got a picture of the rail yard. Now we're back coming into the rail yards. That looks like Maudlin's ears. I don't know whether that's Maudlin from Muncie or not, but then he was in our outfit. That's taken from a train going back across Germany. That's the ship that we're gonna get on to come to the States. It was a very large ship. We could handle 3,000 men on it. That's on the ocean when we was getting on the boat. Some guys out riding around the Coast Guard, riding out there protecting our ship when we're landing, getting ready to ship out. On the ship in the ocean. Took 11 days to go over, 9 days to come back on the ocean on a ship. I laid on my back on a bunk most of the way because riding on a boat made me seasick. I ate crackers and drank water. That was my food for 9 days one direction and 11 days the other.